The year was 2210, and Earth had once been a promising member of the Galactic Council, a body of alien civilizations that governed the galaxy. Humanity, with its boundless curiosity and drive for advancement, had contributed immensely to the galactic community. However, everything changed when a critical decision was made that would alter Earth's fate forever. Earth was accused of violating a fundamental galactic treaty, developing weapons that could potentially destabilize the balance of power in the galaxy. At a time when tensions between different alien species were already high, Earth's government, led by President Richard Thorne, had made the difficult decision to develop a new kind of weapon, one that could protect humanity from any future threats. The weapon was powerful, capable of leveling entire cities, and it was a strategic measure to ensure Earth's survival in an unpredictable universe. The Galactic Council, however, did not see it that way. The Council argued that the weapon threatened the peace of the entire galaxy, and that Earth, a relatively young species compared to the ancient civilizations of the galaxy, was not ready for such power. Despite Earth's explanations and assurances, the decision was made. The Council voted to exile Earth, severing all political and trade ties with the planet. This was the moment Earth's future as a galactic power was shattered. The news spread across the planet like wildfire. People were shocked, confused, and scared. For the first time in history, Earth was isolated from the galaxy, cut off from the advanced alien species that had once been their allies and trade partners. The human race had become a pariah in the vast expanse of space, left to fend for itself. President Thorne, though devastated, knew that giving in to the Council's demands would be the end of humanity's sovereignty. Earth could not survive as a weak, submissive planet. A new path had to be forged. Humanity had no choice but to look inward, relying on its own strength and ingenuity to ensure survival. Behind closed doors, the world's governments convened in secret. The most brilliant minds, military leaders, and scientists were gathered to find a way forward. There was a quiet understanding that Earth's future depended on its ability to innovate, adapt, and build its own destiny. The message was clear. Earth had been exiled, but it would not bow to the will of others. Across the globe, citizens of Earth began to rally. The leaders of the old nations put aside their differences, realizing that their survival depended on unity. Earth was no longer just a member of the galactic community. It was a solitary world, cast adrift in the void of space. As plans for Earth's future took shape, a new spirit emerged among the people. The sense of helplessness was replaced by determination. Earth would rebuild, and while the Galactic Council may have thought they had silenced humanity, they had unknowingly ignited a fire that would one day rise to challenge their authority. Earth was exiled, but it was not defeated. The journey to create a new empire had only just begun. After Earth's exile from the Galactic Council, a sense of uncertainty and fear gripped the planet. However, in the shadows, away from the watchful eyes of the Council, something was beginning to stir. It wasn't just a group of leaders plotting strategies. It was the people of Earth. The exile had sparked a fire within the hearts of humanity, and soon a silent rebellion began to take form. At first, the movements were small, almost unnoticed. Scientists, engineers, and military officials from across the globe secretly met, sharing knowledge and expertise. Earth's major cities were buzzing with activity, as inventors worked tirelessly in underground labs to develop technologies that could rival the advanced alien civilizations they had once called their peers. The weapons, ships, and systems that had been used to control Earth in the past were now being turned against those who sought to subdue it. The governments of Earth, though still officially part of the global political system, were quickly becoming divided. Some still hoped for a peaceful resolution with the Galactic Council, believing that negotiations could one day restore Earth's standing in the galaxy. Others, however, saw a different path. They believed Earth could never return to its previous state and that the only way forward was to build a new empire, one that would not bow to the will of the Council or any other galactic power. Among the underground leaders, a new figure began to emerge. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Dugan, a decorated officer in Earth's military, became the face of the rebellion. Her reputation for military strategy and her unwavering belief in humanity's potential inspired those around her. Sarah believed that Earth could not simply survive, it could thrive and rise above its former masters. Under her leadership, secret training camps were established, where Earth soldiers were taught to fight with tactics and technologies that were unheard of in the galaxy. They trained in isolation, honing their skills in the art of warfare and survival. While the military worked on strengthening Earth's defense, the engineers and scientists began developing a fleet of ships unlike anything seen before. They used salvaged alien technology, along with their own ingenuity, to design warships capable of traveling beyond Earth's solar system. These ships were not just designed for defense. They were designed to assert Earth's presence in the galaxy and challenge the authority of the Galactic Council. The rebellion wasn't just a matter of building weapons and ships, it was a matter of mindset. The people of Earth, once dependent on the Council for guidance and protection, now found themselves thinking for themselves. They realized that the galaxy had underestimated them. Earth was resourceful, resilient, and determined. The time for depending on others was over. Earth was going to stand on its own feet and claim its place among the stars once again. Despite the secrecy, word began to spread. Stories of Earth's secret rebellion reached the far corners of the galaxy, though many thought they were mere rumors. The Galactic Council, still unaware of the growing strength of Earth's resistance, continued its political games, focusing on other matters while ignoring the fact that the very planet they had exiled was preparing to become a force to be reckoned with. In the silence of the rebellion, Earth's people were united by one goal: to build an empire that no one could ever again question or control. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth's exile was not the end. It was only the beginning. As Earth's secret plans began to take shape, a new chapter for humanity was starting to unfold. The first fleet of ships, built in the shadows of underground bunkers, was ready for launch. It wasn't much yet, only a handful of warships. But it was enough to send a powerful message. Earth was no longer content with being a passive member of the galaxy. It was time to reclaim control. The fleet, a mixture of human-made and repurposed alien technology, was equipped with the latest innovations Earth had developed. These ships were sleek, powerful, and capable of long-range travel. Each one was outfitted with advanced weaponry designed to defend Earth and assert its sovereignty in the vastness of space. The moment the fleet launched, Earth's people would know that their path forward had begun. The human soldiers, many of whom had never traveled beyond their own planet, were filled with a mixture of fear and excitement. They were part of something greater now, part of the dawn of a new era. Colonel Sarah Dugan stood on the command deck of the lead ship, the Resurgence, watching as the fleet prepared for departure. The lights of Earth's space station glowed in the distance, a reminder of everything they had lost and everything they hoped to reclaim. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked her second-in-command, Captain Marcus Hale. His face, usually calm and composed, now showed signs of nervousness. Yet there was a spark in his eyes that Sarah recognized: determination. "We're ready," he replied. "This is our chance. We can't afford to fail." As the fleet launched from Earth's atmosphere, the people on the surface watched in awe. They had never seen such a sight before. Massive ships soaring into space, each one a symbol of human resilience. Families gathered in the streets, cheering and waving flags. The sense of unity that had been missing since Earth's exile was now stronger than ever. People from all walks of life, from the soldiers to the engineers to the everyday citizens, felt as though they were part of something greater. The fleet sailed past the moon, leaving Earth's orbit behind, heading into the unknown depths of space. As the ships traveled further, the atmosphere on the command deck was tense. They had no idea what to expect. The Galactic Council had made it clear that Earth's existence was no longer welcome in their domain. Would they be met with hostility? Or would their actions prove that they had the strength to stand alone? Meanwhile, on Earth, President Richard Thorne addressed the planet via a broadcast. his voice filled with pride and determination. "We may have been cast out, but we are not defeated. This is only the beginning. Our future is not in the hands of others. It is in our own." Back in space, the fleet continued its journey into the unknown. The officers aboard the Resurgence were closely monitoring every signal and radar sweep. Every movement in space could be a threat, and they needed to be ready for anything. As they ventured farther from their home, the isolation began to feel real. Earth was no longer just a planet. They were a people cast into the void, fighting for their right to exist. Sarah Dugan stood at the front of the deck, gazing at the stars. This was their new reality. The stakes were high, but Earth was no longer the helpless, isolated planet it had once been. They had become something more. Now, the true test would begin. The test of whether Earth could rise as a force of power and influence, or whether it would remain a forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy. As Earth's fleet ventured deeper into the unknown reaches of space, the silence of the cosmos was overwhelming. For the first time in years, humanity had left behind the comforts and constraints of their home planet. The fleet, led by Colonel Sarah Dugan aboard the Resurgence, had traveled further than any human ship had ever gone before. With each passing day, the crew faced new challenges, navigating uncharted space, keeping systems running smoothly and maintaining morale. But as they approached a distant star system, something unexpected happened. Their sensors detected the presence of another fleet. It wasn't a simple asteroid or a derelict ship. This was a well-organized, active force. It was clear they weren't alone in this part of the galaxy. The alien ships appeared on the fleet's radar, moving fast and organized. They were like nothing the humans had seen before. Sleek, angular ships that glowed faintly with a strange energy. These ships belonged to the Cracks, a fierce and ancient species known for their military prowess and territorial nature. They had been monitoring Earth's movements from afar, intrigued by the sudden appearance of a fleet so far from their home planet. The Cracks had a reputation for being ruthless. They were known to destroy anything they saw as a threat to their power, and a human fleet deep in their territory was most certainly a threat. The crew of the Resurgence braced for battle. Weapons were armed, shields were raised, and the tension on board was palpable. But Colonel Sarah Dugan had other plans. She knew that while Earth had the technology to defend itself, the key to survival wasn't in defeating every enemy. It was in outthinking them. Sarah had spent years studying alien species, and the Cracks were no different. They valued strength, but they also respected cunning and respect. If Earth could show the Cracks that they weren't just another target to be crushed, they might just avoid an all-out war. "Prepare for communication," Sarah ordered, her voice steady. "We're not here to fight. We're here to talk." The crew of the Resurgence was stunned. They had prepared for a battle, but now the colonel was seeking diplomacy. They transmitted a message, a clear sign of their peaceful intentions, to the Cracks fleet. The message was simple. "We are Earth, we come in peace. We wish only to explore and to secure a future for our people. We do not seek war, but we will defend ourselves if forced." The Cracks fleet responded quickly, sending a transmission that was laced with suspicion. A voice came through the speakers, deep and commanding. "Earth, you are far from home. Why do you trespass in our space?" The conversation that followed was tense. The Cracks demanded Earth's intentions. They were unfamiliar with the idea of humans wanting to peacefully coexist. Earth had long been seen as a young and vulnerable species, not capable of understanding the power dynamics of the galaxy. But Colonel Dugan, with her calm demeanor and quick thinking, managed to convince the Cracks that Earth had the strength to stand on its own, without a need to conquer. They were a people willing to learn and grow, not a threat to anyone unless provoked. After a tense pause, the Cracks leader spoke again. "We will allow you to pass, this time. But know this, Earth. If you cross us again, there will be no mercy." The transmission ended and the Cracks ships moved aside, allowing Earth's fleet to continue its journey. The crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. The first encounter had been a success, not through force but through diplomacy. As the Resurgence sailed past the Carax fleet, Sarah Dugan stood at the helm, watching the alien ships recede into the distance. She knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of unknowns, and this encounter had shown that Earth wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. They could stand tall, not just as survivors, but as equals. And with that, Earth's journey into the stars continued. With the first successful diplomatic contact behind them, Earth's fleet continued its journey through the stars. The encounter with the Carax had proven that humans were capable of more than just survival. They were able to think strategically, adapt, and make their presence known in the galaxy. The fleet's successful passage through Carax space marked the beginning of a new chapter for Earth, one that would see humanity rise to power once again. Back on Earth, President Richard Thorne and the leaders of the Earth government were busy solidifying their plans. The Earth Empire was no longer just a distant dream, it was becoming a reality. Across the globe, nations had united under one banner, and the focus was clear: build, expand, and prepare for what lay ahead. The people of Earth, once fractured and divided, now stood together as one. The old divisions of politics, race, and national borders seemed less important in the face of the vast galaxy. Earth's people were no longer just citizens of separate countries, they were citizens of a united planet, working toward a common goal. The first step in Earth's expansion was the establishment of new colonies. Planets within Earth's reach were being explored, and the first human settlements on distant worlds began to take shape. These colonies were not just outposts, they were signs of Earth's growing influence. Each new colony represented a piece of humanity's new empire. The fleet, led by the Resurgence and other newly built ships, now ventured deeper into space. It wasn't just about exploration anymore, it was about claiming territory and ensuring Earth's place among the stars. Military leaders, including Colonel Sarah Dugan, began to oversee the establishment of defensive positions around Earth's colonies. The fleet wasn't just there to explore, it was there to defend Earth's growing empire from any potential threats. While the military prepared for possible conflicts, the scientists and engineers of Earth worked relentlessly to develop new technologies. They were building not just weapons and ships, but systems that would support Earth's colonies for generations. New agricultural methods, advanced energy sources, and efficient life support systems were being developed to ensure that humanity could thrive on any world it claimed. But Earth's rise to power did not go unnoticed. Other civilizations in the galaxy, some old and some newly discovered, began to take an interest in the actions of this once exiled species. Some watched with curiosity, wondering what Earth's intentions were. Others, more cautious and even fearful of Earth's growing strength, began to question how long they could remain neutral in this rapidly changing galactic landscape. The Galactic Council, though weakened by their decision to exile Earth, had not forgotten the human race. They had watched Earth's rise with growing concern. The Council had long controlled the galaxy's power structure, but now, with Earth beginning to forge its own path, they feared the consequences of allowing a rebellious, independent Earth to grow stronger. Earth's leaders, however, were determined to forge their own future. They would no longer be a subject in someone else's game. They would play by their own rules. The Earth Empire was not built out of greed for power, but out of the necessity to survive, protect their people, and secure a future for generations to come. As Earth's fleet moved forward into uncharted space, Colonel Sarah Dugan stood on the bridge of the Resurgence, looking out at the stars. The journey was far from over. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth was no longer the forgotten, exiled planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The Earth Empire had begun. As Earth's empire continued to grow and solidify its presence in the galaxy, internal tensions began to surface. The expansion of human colonies on distant planets, the rapid growth of their fleet, and the development of new technologies all pointed toward a bright future. However, not all were pleased with the direction the new Earth Empire was taking. In the shadows of Earth's success, a group of military officers, political leaders, and wealthy elites began to plot. They were not happy with how the Earth government was being led by President Richard Thorne and the military leaders like Colonel Dugan. The rise of the Earth Empire had created powerful figures, but not everyone was content with their roles in the New World Order. The rebellion began within the military ranks, where some senior officers grew disillusioned with the idea of a united Earth Empire. These officers believed that Earth should be led by a more authoritative government, one that didn't rely on diplomacy and respect, but rather on sheer power and control. They feared that Earth's future might be too reliant on the goodwill of other galactic species, and they wanted to ensure that humanity never again found itself in a vulnerable position. At first, these officers worked in secrecy. They quietly gathered supporters, slowly gaining influence within the ranks of the Earth military. Their goal was to overthrow the government and install a new leadership, one that would take a more aggressive approach to Earth's expansion. They felt that only through force and dominance could Earth truly protect itself from other galactic powers. The plot was discovered when an officer loyal to President Thorn overheard a conversation in a secure military facility. The rebels had already planned to seize control of key spaceports and military bases, preparing for an armed uprising. When the news reached Colonel Dugan, she knew the situation was dire. The unity that Earth had worked so hard to achieve was now in jeopardy. A civil war within the Empire could destroy everything they had built. Colonel Dugan immediately began to work with President Thorn and the loyal officers to stop the rebellion before it could take hold. The situation was delicate. Too much force could lead to widespread chaos, but not enough action could allow the rebels to gain control. Dugan knew that they had to act quickly and decisively. In a tense meeting with President Thorn, Dugan laid out a plan to expose the traitors and prevent the uprising. The first step was to neutralize the rebels' leadership. Dugan would lead a covert strike force to take down the key figures involved in the plot. The goal was not to kill them, but to capture them and prevent them from rallying their supporters. At the same time, loyal soldiers would be dispatched to protect the spaceports and military bases that were most at risk. The operation was dangerous, but it had to be done. As Dugan prepared to lead the mission, she felt the weight of the situation. She knew that the future of Earth's empire rested on the outcome of this conflict. If they failed, the empire could collapse from within, leaving Earth vulnerable to outside forces. As the fleet moved into position, Earth's leaders braced for the fight ahead. The rebellion from within was a bitter reminder that even in times of great unity, there were always those who sought to destroy what had been built. But Dugan was determined. Earth's future would not be decided by traitors. The strength of humanity, forged through their struggle, would stand firm. The days following the discovery of the rebellion were tense. Earth's government, led by President Richard Thorn and supported by Colonel Dugan, had managed to suppress the internal threat with quick action. The rebellion within the military had been contained, and the traitors responsible were now in custody. But the victory was short-lived, as it quickly became clear that Earth's position in the galaxy had attracted more attention than they had anticipated, both from allies and enemies. The Galactic Council, which had once exiled Earth, now saw the growing strength of the human empire as a direct challenge to their authority. The Council had long ruled the galaxy, and they would not allow one of their former members to rise again, especially not one as unpredictable and forceful as Earth. They could not ignore humanity's progress any longer. The first signs of war came when a fleet of council ships appeared on the edges of Earth's newly established colonies. The Council had sent a message, a clear and unspoken declaration of their intentions. Earth's expansion had reached a breaking point. There was no turning back now. A galactic war was inevitable. Colonel Dugan was one of the first to realize the magnitude of the situation. She had always known that Earth's rise would not be without opposition, but now the battle was no longer just about securing Earth's survival. It was about protecting everything they had worked for, about standing up to a galaxy that sought to keep humanity down. As the Council fleet advanced, Earth's own forces quickly mobilized. Ships prepared for battle, defensive positions were reinforced, and the military was put on high alert. The Earth fleet was not as large as the Council's, but it was powerful and well coordinated. Each ship, from the massive dreadnoughts to the smaller, more nimble warships, was ready to defend Earth's right to exist in the galaxy. The first battle took place in the dark void of space just outside one of Earth's colonies. The Council's ships moved in like a well-oiled machine, their weapons aimed and ready. Earth's fleet, under the leadership of Colonel Dugan, held their ground. It was a battle for survival. Earth's defenders knew they could not afford to lose. The clash was intense. Bright flashes of laser fire lit up the darkness as ships darted around, engaging in close-quarters combat. The Earth fleet fought with a fierce determination, using every advantage they had. Their tactics were unconventional, relying on quick strikes, clever maneuvers, and superior knowledge of their own technology. Earth had developed weapons and strategies that no other civilization had, and they used these innovations to their full advantage. The Council's fleet, while more numerous, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable nature of Earth's fighting style. Earth's military, despite being outnumbered, held their ground with unwavering resolve. The battle raged for hours, and it was clear that Earth would not back down. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the people watched as the conflict unfolded in the stars. News of the battle spread quickly, and once again, the people of Earth came together. The war was no longer just about the military, it was about humanity's survival and their place in the galaxy. People of all backgrounds, from scientists to engineers to farmers, did their part, providing support for the war effort in any way they could. The war was just beginning. Earth had taken the first steps to stand tall against the Galactic Council, but the path ahead would be long and dangerous. The galaxy would learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. Earth's fight for freedom, respect, and survival had only just begun. The war between Earth and the Galactic Council had been raging for months, and the balance of power was shifting with every battle. Earth, despite being outnumbered and underestimated, had proved to be a formidable force. Colonel Sarah Dugan's tactical brilliance, combined with Earth's cutting-edge technology, had allowed them to hold their own against the vast and powerful fleets of the Council. But the toll of war was beginning to show. The Earth fleet had suffered losses, and the colonies on distant worlds were under constant threat. The Council, while initially surprised by Earth's resilience, was not about to back down. They had underestimated humanity once, but they would not make the same mistake again. Their next move was clear. They were planning a full-scale invasion of Earth. The news spread quickly across the Earth Empire. President Richard Thorne addressed the planet, his voice filled with both resolve and concern. "We have faced countless challenges, and we have overcome them. But now we face our greatest test. The Council believes that they can crush us, that they can bring us to our knees, but they will learn that we are not a people to be defeated. We will fight, we will stand, and we will win." As the Earth fleet prepared for the impending invasion, the sense of urgency grew. The Council's forces were vast, and their next attack would be their strongest yet. Earth had no choice but to mobilize every resource it had: ships, soldiers, and even the people who had once only dreamed of space travel. The Earth Empire was no longer just a military force. It was a unified people, ready to protect their home. Meanwhile, Colonel Dugan worked tirelessly, coordinating with military leaders and strategists to plan a defense that would give Earth a fighting chance. The plan was bold. They would not just wait for the Council's invasion to reach Earth. They would take the fight to them. Earth's fleet would launch a counteroffensive, striking at key Council targets, disrupting their supply lines and weakening their forces before they could reach Earth's orbit. The risks were immense. A failed counteroffensive could leave Earth's home planet exposed to an all-out attack, but Dugan knew that if they didn't act now, the future of humanity would be sealed. The time for waiting was over. It was time to show the galaxy that Earth could not be beaten. The counteroffensive began with a series of surprise attacks on Council supply ships and communication hubs. The Earth fleet, now fully mobilized, moved quickly and strategically. The Council's forces, caught off guard by the sudden strike, scrambled to regroup. Earth's ships, using their superior speed and agility, struck at the heart of the Council's operations. For the first time in the war, the Earth fleet was on the offensive. The Council, unable to predict Earth's bold moves, found itself on the back foot. The battle for the future of Earth was no longer a one-sided conflict. It was a fight for survival, and Earth was beginning to gain the upper hand. As Earth's fleet continued its strikes, the people of Earth stood united in their support. No longer just defenders, they were now active participants in the fight for their future. Each success in space sent a wave of hope through the planet, proving that Earth was capable of more than just defending itself. It was capable of changing the course of the galaxy. The turning point had come. Earth had not only held its ground but had begun to turn the tide of the war in its favor. The Galactic Council was no longer certain of their victory, and Earth's path to victory had become clearer. But there was still much to be done, and the war was far from over. The real test was just beginning. The war between Earth and the Galactic Council had escalated to a point where there was no turning back. After months of fierce conflict, the tides had turned. Earth, once exiled and forgotten, was now a force to be reckoned with. But the final test was coming. The Galactic Council, realizing that their grip on the galaxy was slipping, had gathered their full might for one last, all-out assault on Earth. The Earth fleet, now stronger than ever, was ready. Colonel Sarah Dugan stood on the bridge of the Resurgence, her mind focused on the battle ahead. The fleet had fought hard and gained ground, but this was different. The Council's forces were vast, and their ships were powerful. They were determined to crush Earth once and for all. The final battle would take place near Earth's home planet, where the future of humanity would be decided. If Earth's forces lost, the planet would be vulnerable, and the Galactic Council would impose their rule once more. But if Earth could hold their ground and defeat the Council's fleet, humanity's place in the galaxy would be secure. Earth would not just survive, it would thrive. As Earth's fleet gathered in formation, Sarah addressed her crew. This is it. We've fought for everything, our homes, our future, our freedom. But we do not fight alone. We fight as one. For every person on Earth, for every colony, and for the generations to come, we will stand strong. We will win. The fleet moved into position, each ship prepared for the oncoming storm. The space around Earth was filled with the hum of energy, as weapons powered up and shields strengthened. The sky above the planet, once a peaceful expanse, was now a battleground. The Galactic Council's fleet arrived in full force, their ships towering in the void of space, their weapons aimed directly at Earth. The Council had brought their best commanders and warships. This was a battle for total domination. The fate of the galaxy in their minds depended on ending the human threat once and for all. The first shots were fired, and the war erupted into chaos. Explosions lit up the dark void as ships from both sides engaged in fierce combat. The Council's ships were powerful, but Earth's fleet had something they didn't, a sense of unity and determination that no enemy could match. Every human on every ship fought with everything they had. Each crew member knew that this wasn't just a battle. It was a fight for their survival. Sarah led the charge, coordinating attacks and making split-second decisions that kept the Council forces off balance. Her experience and leadership were unmatched, and her presence on the battlefield inspired her crew to fight harder. The Earth fleet was nimble and quick, using clever tactics and advanced technology to strike at the heart of the Council's fleet. As the battle raged, Earth's forces slowly began to turn the tide. One by one, the Council's ships were disabled or destroyed. The Galactic fleet, once so confident in their power, began to falter. The leadership of the Council, faced with overwhelming resistance, started to lose control. Finally, after hours of intense fighting, Earth's fleet launched a decisive strike. The final blow was dealt to the flagship of the Galactic Council, the ship that had led the invasion. With its destruction, the remaining Council forces began to retreat. Earth had won. The victory was hard-earned, but it was complete. Earth had proven that it would not be defeated, that it had the strength, the will, and the ingenuity to stand tall in the galaxy. The Council had underestimated humanity's power and resilience, and now they would never forget. As the smoke cleared and the Earth fleet gathered around the planet, Sarah Dugan stood at the helm, her heart racing, The battle was over, but the journey was far from finished. Earth had secured its future, but new challenges would arise. The galaxy was vast, and there was much more to explore and conquer. But for now, Earth had won, and for the first time in centuries, humanity stood at the top of its own destiny. The final battle was over. The Galactic Council, once a towering power that controlled the galaxy, had been defeated. Earth's fleet, led by Colonel Sarah Dugan and President Richard Thorne, had fought valiantly and triumphed. The Council's forces, shattered and in retreat, would no longer be a threat. For the first time in history, humanity had secured its place among the stars, not as a helpless species, but as a powerful and respected empire. As Earth's fleet returned home, the atmosphere on the planet was one of celebration and relief. The people of Earth had endured years of struggle, from their exile by the Galactic Council to the battles that followed. Now, they stood victorious. The stars above no longer seemed so distant, and the future felt full of possibility. In the months that followed the victory, Earth began the process of rebuilding and strengthening its position in the galaxy. The colonies that had been established during the war flourished. New trade routes were opened, and Earth began forging new alliances with other civilizations who, seeing Earth's strength and resilience, were eager to engage in peaceful relations. President Thorne addressed the United Nations of Earth, his voice steady and full of pride. "We have fought for our future and we have won. Earth is no longer an exile in the galaxy. We are now a force for peace and progress. We will work with our neighbors, and together we will build a future where no one is oppressed and no one is left behind." The new Earth Empire, born from the ashes of war, was guided by the principles of unity, strength, and respect for all life. Though many in the galaxy had feared humanity's rise, it was clear now that Earth had a unique role to play. They were not conquerors but guardians of peace, with the strength to defend their people and the wisdom to protect the galaxy from further conflict. Colonel Dugan, now a hero of Earth, was appointed to lead the newly formed Earth Defense Force, ensuring that humanity's military would remain strong, but focused on defense and peacekeeping. She understood that Earth's power came not from domination, but from the courage to protect what was right and just. The Galactic Council, weakened by the war, was no longer the dominant force it once was. Earth had not only defeated them on the battlefield, but had proven that a new way of governance was possible, one based on mutual respect, collaboration, and strength through unity. Other galactic civilizations began to look to Earth as a model for how to create a fair and balanced society. But even as peace settled over Earth, Sarah Dugan and her team knew the work was far from over. There were still unknowns in the galaxy, alien civilizations that had yet to be encountered, and dangers that could threaten the fragile peace. But Earth's people had learned something invaluable during the war. They were capable of facing the unknown and overcoming the impossible. The stars no longer seemed so distant. Earth, once a lonely, exiled planet, now stood as a beacon of hope for the galaxy. The journey had been long and the cost had been high, but humanity had triumphed. As Sarah Dugan stood looking out at the vast expanse of space, she knew one thing for certain: Earth's story was just beginning.